Hi, my name is Elshadi Sendek, and I did an evaluation of Syrian refugees. So to start, where do Syrian refugees live? The majority of the Syrian refugees, about 5.6 million refugees, have fled by land and by sea across the borders to neighboring countries that are within the Middle East. Turkey took in about 3.5 refugees. 90% of those refugees live outside of the camps and have limited access to basic services. Lebanon took in about 1 million Syrian refugees, making up about 1/5 of Lebanon's population. Many live in primitive conditions in formal tent settlements, which are not official refugee camps. With few legal outcomes and opportunities, they struggle to afford residency fees, rent, utilities, and food. Jordan took about 660,000. Iraq took in about 247,000 Syrian refugees, and there's a struggle on Iran specifically because of the fact that the communities were integrated within the Iraqi community, and it caused a strain on its services. Egypt took in about 127,000 Syrian refugees, and Europe had 1.3 million asylums come in, but did not accept as many, which led to the European migrant crisis. The United States only took in about 18,000. The statistics, specifically the United States, was taken in October 2011 to 2016. These are images of the refugee camps within Turkey. And so a little bit of history on Syria before the civil war. The population was about 21,898,000 in 2013. The area was about 85,180 kilometers squared. Syria has a rich culture and history, about 8,000 years worth. It is economically fast growing and has lower middle income community. This is the flag and kind of the geographical setting. So these are kind of before and after pictures of Syria. A little bit of history about it. It started in 2011, specifically March. Peaceful protesters in southern cities are met with violent crackdowns by Syrian security forces. Opposition group organizations could not seem to unite. International sanctions and other attempts to pressure the government to moderate the situation did not bring any solutions, and essentially all of these things led to the civil war. Again, before and after pictures. So why are Syrians seeking refugee? One is because of the violence. Since the Syrian civil war began, 470,000 people have been killed, including 55,000 children. Collapsed infrastructure. Within Syria, 95% of the people lack adequate health care, 70% lack regular access to clean water, half the children are out of school, and the economy is shattered, and 80% of the population live in poverty. Children are in danger. They are the pinnacle to our future, and they have suffered a lot. They've lost loved ones, suffered injuries, missed years of schooling, and experienced unspeakable violence and brutality. What makes the community very interesting to myself, and why I define them as a very strong community, is one, their loss of home, the fact that they share a Syrian nationality. They are all facing the devastation of Syrian civil war, forced integration into new countries and communities, and their hope for a better tomorrow. So the evaluation that I'll be looking at, specifically from what I've learned in class to kind of how I'm evaluating this community, is through political organization. So to understand why there are so many Syrian refugees in the first place, we must understand the political organization within Syria. When evaluating why civil war occurred and why the subset of population was created within Syria's population, one comes to understand that it is due to the fact that the political organizations could not comply, satisfy, or complete the three challenges that are defined to be foundations of every continental political organization. It is in Syria's lack of and failure to meet these challenges that led to the creation of Syrian refugees. Essentially, the government and the society struggles to meet the needs of its members. So one of the foundations being supporting the well-being of its members. So when looking at this, we're looking at a map, essentially, that depicts the GDP and how much it shrank between the years 2011 to 2014. And it's a staggering 62%. This is very high because even during the Great Depression, the global GDP only dropped about 15%. Maintaining cohesion among its members is another pinnacle point. In March, peaceful protests erupted in Syria after a 15-year-old boy was detained and tortured for graffitiing and supporting the Arab Spring. One of the boys, a 13-year-old, was killed after being brutally tortured. The Syrian government, after that, essentially led by Bashar al-Assad, responded to the protests by killing hundreds of demonstrators and imprisoning many more. In July 2011, defectors from the military announced the formation of the Free Syrian Army, a rebel group aiming to overthrow the government, and the Syrian army began to slide into a civil war. And finally, maintaining the socioeconomic balance to other countries. Russia has been a pinnacle part in essentially helping Mr. Assad keep his power, and hasn't been really helping the Syrian refugees.